You have to be careful about making a weird show or watching a weird show.
Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast. Joined this week for this first session by Giles Edwards.
Hello.
Christmassy and busy Giles Edwards. And we have a short slate of movies to discuss in this first session, followed by which we'll bring on our announced guest, Evan Marlowe of Abruptio, and followed by that we'll bring on a surprise guest who we did not know until yesterday that we were going to get a chance to interview, and that is Vera Drew of The People's Joker. So this will be the first episode ever with two separate guests. Exciting stuff. And we will be off next week for Christmas, and then we will come back the following week with our review of 2024 and also talk about any new releases that pop up. Shouldn't be much, although we are early January. You are getting into the point where it's time to preview Sundance.
And last time I believe you thought there might not be much. There were a dozen or so items of interest.
Sundance or Slam Dance? They're two different ones. Okay, let me get up today's quick items. A lot of these we will not have much to say about, but here is the slate. And the first one is a news item of dubious
providence?
Yeah, we'll see.
Now, not to insult variety, of course.
Yeah, we will see. Giles, would you like to describe what we're seeing for the...
All right, we are seeing two photographs of two different gentlemen from two very different points in time. One of them is still with us, thank goodness, and the other is no longer with us, but definitely left an indelible stamp in the field of, Americana entertainment. On the left-hand side, we have a middle-aged, well-mustachioed, goatee beard, somewhat long-haired fellow with a jaunty kind of cowboy-style cap, and a very, shall we say, like a presentation form of what is probably based on a genuine cowboy kind of outfit. Lots of that frill stuff and, stitched patterns and the like. And it's an old black and white photograph, possibly a daguerreotype. I honestly don't quite remember the visual differences between those eras, but a big name in the second half of the 19th century. Whereas on the right is an affable-looking, somewhat frizzy-haired fellow, clad, no doubt, for some formal event, being that he's black bow tie, black studs, white shirt, black jacket. So obviously a tuxedo thing going on there, and he's looking pretty pleased with himself, as well he should. He seems a very kindly fellow, and no matter what movie he's in, even if I don't particularly care for the movie, I'm always happy to see him there.
And that character on the right, who is in color, will be portraying the character on the left, who is in black and white.
Yes.
And the black and white character, of course, if you hadn't guessed from the description, and you probably hadn't, is Buffalo Bill Cody. And the one on the right is John C. Reilly, the fantastic character actor. Sometime lead actor, rarely lead actor, but in this he's going to be a lead. And this is just something we cited on Variety, a notice of an upcoming movie that caught our attention because Variety describes it as a surreal Western. However, they don't go into any more detail than that.
Yeah.
Just throw
Well,
those words out. They don't
mm,
describe why it might be surreal. What they describe doesn't sound particularly like it would be surreal. It's based on a real life incident, a horse taming competition between Italian cowboys and American cowboys. Um, I think perhaps the reason they are calling it a surreal Western is because of who made it, who are the filmmakers behind a movie called Tale of King Crab, which is a movie that we haven't seen. I haven't seen it. I remember seeing the listing and thinking this is kind of borderline. It was a fairy tale type of movie. I thought it could be weird. Wasn't sure if it was weird enough for us to feature our track. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I guess we'll have to just wait and see with this one. The movie is called Heads or Tails. Will come out in 2025 and should be at some European festivals. Perhaps Cannes would be a good bet for where it might show up. That's about the earliest European festival in the season. So there's that. Any final thoughts about that, Giles?
nothing in particular, although seeing John C. Reilly as Buffalo Bill is probably worth the price of admission.
Yeah, it sounds cool. On to the next one. Giles would love to describe, I think. So.
Oh, definitely. This I believe is a still from a TV series that's coming out. It is dominating the one frame here is the face of a orange and black striped cat. Big glowing green eyes. Over its right shoulder, you can see another orangey cat with a glowing green eye, and over its left, you can see just the outline of maybe a grayish cat. So there's a lot of cat head on in this still here. And I guess worth mentioning is the wide mouthed expression of this particular cat. It's done up sort of, cartoon anime realist style, but there's exuding some menace in that all its pointy teeth are being advertised. And as we stare down this fuzzy little face with its big bright green eyes, can't help but think that maybe we're in more danger than we'd like to be.
Mm. And do you know what it's called?
I can take a crack at it. Nyaight of the Living Cat.
Yes, they're spelling night, Nyaight. So Nyaight of the Living Cat. I think my guess as to what's happening there is they're trying to do a meow, kind of make it sound like a meow sign.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe
I think they.
nia is how the Japanese do the meow, nia.
Okay.
That's what I'm guessing is going on.
Oh, okay. And there's a famous cat, the Nyan cat, an early or a YouTube phenomenon,
Hmm.
which became internet meme,
Uh,
which they also might be tying in with, as since this is an animated what have you coming out on Crunchyroll.
yes, it's going to be a series, and the reason that it especially comes to our attention is the executive director. The plot is simply it's about a virus that turns people into cats when a cat rubs up against you. And Giles, being a cat person, this would probably speak to his deepest nightmares.
Well, that said, and
Maybe
there
my
is truth in
deepest.
that. That's true. I mean, it's both different for different reasons, differently deep nightmares there. But certainly Miike, being executive producer for an anime about a sort of apocalyptic cat transformation virus, that ticks a lot of boxes that pique my curiosity.
Yeah. Miike is listed as executive director, which a lot of times in the Japanese film industry, they have titles that don't exactly correspond to our English or American titles. I've never heard of an executive director before. I'm guessing it's something like what we would call a showrunner, in that he's
Yeah, that would be what I'd
not
think.
directing the individual episodes, because there is another director mentioned, but he's kind of probably closer to what we would call a showrunner or an executive producer.
Hmm.
But who knows? We don't know what an executive director is in the Japanese industry. But I did want to mention his Miike's quote.
Oh,
This laugh out loud, panic inducing anime was born to bring happiness to everyone on Earth. I hope you enjoy it. And it's coming in 2025 via Crunchyroll. We also have a trailer which will be up. Did you see the trailer, Giles?
oh, shucks. No, I didn't yet, but I am very much. Yeah.
Uh, One thing I found sort of interesting about the trailers, the cats seem to be very done very realistically. They're kind of realistic looking, whereas the people look like typical anime stylization.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
They're not used to. There's no anime format for cats that I'm aware of, so they just made them look real.
That's probably. Oh, yeah. I imagine stylistically in keeping with what's going on there as the new reality falls onto the globe.
I'm also not sure whether it will be a subscriber only thing, or
Mm.
if it will be something that everyone will be able to access. Sometimes on Crunchyroll, you can see things for free with ads, and other things are behind a paywall. Or
Mm.
at least that's how it used to be. I haven't checked in to Crunchyroll for a while. But that's in 2025 because Miike is involved. I think that's why people are excited about it. On to some physical media releases. I have a back cover of a Blu-ray here.
Let's
Giles,
see.
what you want? Take a crack at describing it, I guess.
All right. Well, this is it's very very blocky. There are obviously some people here, some facsimiles of celebrities, but it's animated in a style with very little articulation about it. Um, Presuming it's animated, since I'm only seeing still images here. Still, but it does look very exciting with a lot of different kinds of people, including one undistinguishable one, which might be a famous one of the members of a famous masked musician duo.
Mhm.
So this is normal layout for Blu-ray with blurb about thing, and we're all very excited. Large image featuring main character, little snapshots featuring a couple pairs, and then one center guy, and starring various luminaries that even those unfamiliar with any of the genres involved probably have heard of.
Yes, and so this is the Blu-ray for Piece by Piece, which I reviewed. It is well, first let me just read the text that they've chosen for the back cover of this Blu-ray. Piece by Piece is an unparalleled motion picture experience that invites audiences on a vibrant journey through the life of cultural icon Pharrell Williams. Told through the lens of Lego animation, turn up the volume on your imagination and witness the evolution of one of music's most innovative minds. And yeah, and that's fairly accurate. It is a musical biography of Pharrell Williams, and everyone is in Legos, including all the celebrity cameos, which include, as listed here, Gwen Stefani, Kendrick Lamar, Timbaland. I don't know that. Justin Timberlake, Busta Rhymes, Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, and some others who didn't get mentioned, like Daft Punk.
Yep. Yeah, I got
On
my eye on
there.
the product description. I wonder, it'd be swell if they had a little figurine tie-in for this for those who like that kind of
Oh
collecting.
yeah, that would be
I would kill for some Daft Punk Lego.
And anyway, I am unfamiliar with Pharrell Williams. I've seen the movie, and I still consider myself unfamiliar with Pharrell Williams. after having seen it. He's mostly a producer. I guess he's done some things under his own name. So he's produced these acts that like Snoop Dogg and so forth. Um, I'm totally unfamiliar with this movie. Don't like most of these artists, and yet I really like this movie.
Yeah, I see
And
you recommended it. Nice.
yeah, so I don't say, that I don't like the music just to, be a musical snob, although I am a musical snob. My larger point is that you don't have to like the music to enjoy this movie because of the uniqueness of this Lego animation. And there are scenes in this that are just very trippy, one of which is featured on the cover here.
The light explosion.
Yeah, the light coming out of the stereo. Williams claims to have synesthesia, where he sees musical notes as colors, right? Or as forms. And so this is an attempt to literalize that, and it gets very psychedelic at times, and there are some just amazing fantasy scenes, and it's always just a lot of fun to look at, and fairly PG for the kiddies. Snoop Dogg does not. He uses a little smiley spray that he that makes them smile and giggle. So there's kind of an innocence to it, and of course, because Pharrell Williams is producing it, it's not going to be a hit piece. This is all about how great and awesome he is, but that's okay. It was still a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking if your ego can't be too huge if you're having your biopic in toy form.
Yes, yes, it's a fun little movie, and certainly, if they had done this just with the talking heads, not in Lego, I think it would have bored the hell out of me. But doing it in Lego was actually brilliant and got me interested, and so therefore I recommended the movie. And here it is on Blu-ray. It does come with a one bonus feature, an exclusive interview with Pharrell Williams and Morgan Neville, who is the director. Does not say if that is live action or also in Lego. I think I would feel a little cheated if it wasn't in Lego, but you take your chances, I guess. Okay, the next one.
All right.
A promotional image.
This is a wide promotional image. This is probably wider even than the widescreen 2.35 that I'm fairly certain it must have been filmed on. We got three bands of activity separated vertically. In the middle, we got a couple of names and the name of the feature. On the right-hand side, we've got a woman in deep, thorough black eyeshadow, not quite making a raccoon style visage. White woman, blonde hair, I'm going to guess late 30s, early 40s for our purposes here, and deep crimson lipstick that looks on the cusp of being overdone, and she's staring straight ahead at us. And then to her left are the series of words and names, and to the left of that is a fellow done in more elaborate clown harlequin style with a white face and a broad painted on basically half of an ellipse, a semicircle thing going on to mimic a smiling face, red done up prominently on the nose, and dark blue diamonds painted over, from the middle of the forehead down to below the eye to accentuate the expressiveness there. And whereas the woman on the right looks like she might be breaking into an actual smile, the fellow on the left seems a bit more taciturn. Yeah, I think that's the pronunciation. And these two are, I believe, become romantically involved in this film.
And sing.
And as happens at times when people become romantically involved, from my understanding, I think classes on the Hollywood musical, and I was like, oh, it's amazing how much song and dance can come up when people are truly in love.
So this is Joker, Folie Deux. Not a movie I thought we'd ever be interested in. It actually ties into our second guest, who plays a character based on these characters, and sort of an amalgam of them. Also, there is a character named Mr. J, who is also based on one of these characters. So there's a tie-in there. So that's one reason to mention it. Another reason is it was recommended or suggested that we review it by somebody, a regular reader in our suggestion queue, Mike B, who recommends a lot of things that we end up reviewing and liking. And although every critic in the world hated this movie, and it tops most worst of 2024 list, it does have two prominent defenders who like it. One is Quentin Tarantino, who went on a podcast and said he liked this film and then just got blasted by everyone. I think he lost fans over it. People were like, how can you possibly like this movie? And he was then very profane in his response to people who didn't like the fact that he liked this movie.
I don't. Yeah, I haven't read any of the remarks, but the thing about, I got in this conversation a lot with movie preferences. Like, there isn't really a wrong thing to do, and Tarantino is more educated than virtually anybody else when it comes to cinema, and so his views are at least going to be informed.
His reasons for liking it weren't particularly compelling to me. He said he liked it because it was a big fuck you to comic book fans and to the studio. And
there are more noble reasons to like something and better ones. Yeah,
I hope there's more to it than that. I mean,
I haven't seen it, but I know, and I guess I know enough different people around the social medias that I saw all kinds of remarks from each end of the love-hate spectrum, and even kind of off to one side. So the fact that it's polarizing is often a good sign for the likes of us, anyway.
I didn't see anyone who liked it, though, except, as I say, you came across some. I haven't. The other defender of this movie is John Waters, who put it on his top 10 movies of the year list, proclaiming it a love story. Finally, a love story even I can relate to. And my theory is that John Waters is trolling us with that, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe he legitimately thinks it's one of the 10 best movies of the year. Waters' year-end lists are always interesting because they're always about composed half of movies that nobody else has ever heard of, that he somehow dug up. So I don't know if we'll get around to reviewing that or not. I don't think I'm prioritizing it. Seems like something for Giles, or
that'll depend on where it starts streaming and at what price point, I guess.
Right. If it's free somewhere, Shane Wilson will probably review it. Other than that, I don't know if we'll get to it. It'll stay in the reader suggestion queue, though, until it disappears. And finally, one last movie. You want to describe it, Giles? The Blu-ray.
Sure thing. We got a Blu-ray cover here. Top 40% of the insert is the name of the movie in a can't really say I know what kind of font that is, but it is a bit stylized. But the image below looks like there are three people crammed in a subway car or on a bus, some sort of public transportation. There's a slim guy, looks like a cartoon slim guy, as this is an animated film. and it's just sort of khakis, blue sweater thing, collared shirt, kind of chin length hair, so not quite hippie, but not clean cut yuppie nonsense. And he's squeezed between these two other passengers. To the slim fella's right is a happy looking but very, very drunk, obese, out of it, borderline, possibly actually hobo person. This large individual has their right shoe is open almost all the way around the front, exposing some foot there. But at least in the current state of probable inebriation, this person looks like they don't really have a care in the world. And to the left of the small or crushed gentleman in the center is a woman who looks very upright, prim, has a big sort of muumuu dress thing on, orange with little decorative spots, is wearing her white gloves that she wears going out and traveling, has a delightful hat with lots of twirled pink things on top of it. And she looks differently out of it, or at least content, at least stoic, kind of staring off in the middle distance, not either being unaware or not being concerned that she is part of the constricting issue for this slim dude stuck between these people. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is Heavy Traffic, Ralph Bakshi's Heavy Traffic. For some reason, Ralph Bakshi's name is not on the front cover. It's Samuel Z. Arkoff Presents. I think Ralph Bakshi has more fans than Samuel Z. Arkoff does.
I've heard of Ralph Bakshi, of course. Samuel Z. Arkoff. That's okay. I mean,
he's like the poor man's Roger Corman.
Whoa. Who's the rich man's Roger Corman?
This is Ralph Bakshi's second animated feature, which is, I think, kind of autobiographical. It's about an artist growing up in New York. And then there are a lot of fantasy elements. His name is Michael Corleone. He's got a gangster father. It's just a grimy sort of New York in the 70s, pre-taxi driver thing with a lot of homeless people, prostitutes, hoes, so forth, and a lot of craziness going on. Sort of a X-rated underground cartoon of the period 1973. There's no real reason for it to be reissued right now. Shout Factory had just issued a Blu-ray of it fairly recently with no extra features, and now apparently they lost the rights, and an outfit called Sandpiper is releasing it again with no extra features. But yeah, it's you haven't seen it, I'm guessing, Giles.
No, I haven't. It is higher on my to see list than many of the other movies that exist, though. So, and I'm just checking out this Arkoff guy, and the biggest movie I think is Empire of the Ants. Executive producer for that. He was the executive producer for the sequel to Westworld, Future World, which I've actually seen. Heavy Traffic.
Yeah, I just like Corman, he every now and then gets into a big.
Oh, Abominable Dr. Fives. Okay.
Oh, there's a good one. Yeah. They're lower budget movies, but
they sure are. But looking at these and recognizing the ones I do is like, okay, good. I thank you, Mr. Arkoff, but still, Bakshi, I think, is going to be a bigger draw for an animated feature like that, right. At least name-wise.
Right. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I need to see it again. I did give it a apocrypha, a list candidate at that time status. And we don't have a Bakshi movie yet on, so maybe it's time for another look. That about does it, Giles. You have anything to add?
No, it's a good short week. Looking forward to our coming guests. So we'll get good and prep for that.
Yep. So why don't we just say goodbye, and we'll bring on Evan Marlowe of Abruptio momentarily, and follow that up with Vera Drew of The People's Joker, and see you in a moment. No time will pass for you, although Giles and I will have plenty of time to go out and use the restroom. See you then.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Greg and Giles, and we're back with our special guest, Evan Marlowe, of the new movie Abruptio, which is now out on just about any streaming service you would want to use, and also on Blu-ray. And Giles will probably end up asking most of the questions. I will usually start out with a question, and so let's get through the questions you've probably been asked a million times before. And the most obvious one, I'll try to phrase it a little differently. What do you think this film would have looked like if it had been made with live actors instead of puppets?
I'm not sure anyone would have seen it or talked about it. There's really nothing extraordinary about the script itself. I mean, there some interesting ideas, but I think the puppets elevate that theme that's inside the script. So I don't know. It would just be another movie, I think.
I was wondering, some of the scenes would have been hard to stage, I think, with real
Yeah.
actors. It might
Well,
have.
that's the thing. The thing is, you can do anything to the human body with CGI and foam rubber. So really, nothing shocking, and you probably could, carry a lot of this off with humans. But I mean, the question is, why would you do it?
That's turning the question sort of on its head, which is, I guess, what we wanted to do. I guess there is one more question let me ask before I turn it over to Giles, so I don't forget, because I'm curious, is the title Abruptio. Now, I know that there's a syndrome called abruptio placenta, where a fetus will detach from the placenta. Is that at all related to your choice of title?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear by the end, or hopefully it is, or if it's not on rewatching, that this movie is about a kind of person, a kind of guy in America who doesn't have the best relationship with women. And I think a lot of that stems from his relationship with his mom. And it's just that, breaking away from your mom for a lot of US, man babies.
Mm. Okay, Giles, do you have some questions?
Yes, sure. Thank you thank you very kindly for chatting with us. I had the pleasure of, I'll say pleasure. I had the pleasure of catching Abruptio just a few months ago when it came into our crosshairs. Always had a number of aspects that we keep an eye out for. And I'm going to advise now, there's a chance this conversation may slip into spoiler territory, because what I considered the main theme and message of this movie is only revealed in the final minute or so.
I would assume that everybody who's listening to this has watched the movie, and if not, I would encourage them to do that first. It's hard to talk about it without spoiling it.
Yeah. So that warning out of the way, this is a movie about alcoholism, among other things. That issue you mentioned, of course, now with not growing up and remaining a puppet. I'm sort of curious, seeing as you also wrote the screenplay for this, how long have you had this idea, and at what point did it become a puppet idea?
I think, this is 10 years ago that I think I came up with the script idea. So the genesis of it is a little foggy. My wife is the producer, has a better idea. She's much younger and a better memory. But she says I woke up from a dream with this idea that everybody's going to be puppets. And I was very clear that these were going to look like humans, but they were actually just hand puppets. So I guess that's what sparked it, according to my wife. And then I had to create a script that kind of, exploited that idea.
Okay, yeah, and it certainly exploits it well. I noticed a number of, influences that may have been acting upon you there. The various challenges faced by our quiet protagonist, less hackles. For instance, there were vibes of kind of Saw motivation, like various traps and violence kind of things. I don't want to, say that was necessarily what inspired you there, but more so ask what it was that, brought to mind this increasing sequence of player challenges, I guess.
I think it all had to lead to in his mind to the reveal that who's doing all this is some kind of race of aliens that's breeding with humans and also using humans as sort of a food to feed their young. I mean, all that's kind of explained by the end. But the challenges, to a large degree, work to that end, but also because whoever this is wants him to be rewarded. So he's getting a new house, a new car. So these missions are ways to reward him for, basically in his mind, manning up and going after it, being assertive or being aggressive.
Excellent. Okay, because they certainly do build up and things get increasingly unpleasant. I guess speaking of the aliens, I've seen a lot of odd movies in my day, a lot of movies with nasty, grisly imagery and a lot of weird things. If you might talk about the inspiration for those horrible, horrible babies.
I don't know. I think I just worked it out with whoever the fabricator was at the time. It might have been Jeff or Jeff Farley or someone else. We just threw around some ideas. I just think we said, just really razor sharp teeth. I had an idea for the adult, which is also in there. And that image is also reflected in the poster that he's staring at the end of the movie. So that's where the genesis of the alien comes from in his mind. He's created the fantasy around what he's staring at in this room. So I kind of wanted some of the adult worked into the alien, and I wanted it, I guess, a little bit human because it's a crossbreed. So it was just kind of a mix. It's just we threw ideas back and forth.
Okay, well, it's always good to see cooperation between creative types bear such novel fruit there. Now, I see behind you in your wonderfully creepy, otherwise empty interview space, there's not the main character, but probably the most important character other than the main character. He's the police chief, I believe. Now, he plays an interesting role within this movie, and it was him that reminded me of the progression in the 1991 film Jacob's Ladder. There's he's trying to facilitate these realizations despite Les's mental immobility, only working on, being prompted by external events and such. Is that a fair connection to make there, do you think?
Well, if I saw the movie, it was probably 91 when it was released, and I don't think I've seen it. But I don't think I don't know if that's the first time that device has been used or the last, but I think it's it's a pretty standard type of thing. Someone's a catalyst, whether it's a love interest or something like this, to get somebody to open their eyes and realize what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. So another one of the many fine puppets kicking around in here. Now, you mentioned that you had interactions with at least one fabricator. Assembling your team for making these, did you happen to know puppeteers, or what was the hunt for that like?
We went into this completely blind. Puppets aren't our thing, and the fabricators we went out to probably never made puppets. We were all just kind of inventing the wheel. So we tried working with different techniques, different materials, different fabricators, and it was really the whole movie was trial and error over the course of years until we figured out the most efficient way to do this.
I'm wondering. Let's take a look at just some of the designs. So there's they're very different, but all kind of the same. Did you have to make multiples of each suit, or is there just one suit for each character?
There's typically one head for each character, with the exception of Les. we had a sort of a stunt head, so if he's getting knocked around or something, he was kind of, not as detailed. But for close-ups and stuff like that, we'd have the main head. We also, as we worked on, we found there was too much wrinkling with certain techniques of fabrication, so we created a new Les head that had less wrinkling and you could articulate it easier. So, but typically speaking, we had one head for each character.
And at times you would, when you're doing a close-up, was there always a human in it, or did you have certain scenes where there's no human in it?
Almost, I can't think of an exception. There's always a puppeteer with their hand inside the head.
Hmm.
The exception, well, no, I will say there's a shot where somebody's head blows up, or that would have been hard to do, or a head comes off the body. In those cases, like for example, for the dad, we had a duplicate head with its head missing and chunks that could be pulled up with fishing wire. So I would have him go through the line, cut the camera, replace the head with this stunt head or whatever you want to call it, with pumps of blood inside of it, and then start the camera back up again, and then splice the two together. So yeah, there's some shots that just wouldn't have worked if we had a hand inside of it.
And in some scenes, it's where there's a close-up, there's a hand inside of it, but there's some long shots where it's obviously a human. Oh,
There's, I guess, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen shots, but it wouldn't have worked we couldn't have figured out a way to do it. Yeah. So we had a duplicate mask made, and usually my wife was in those.
oh, really?
Yeah, strapped herself down and did her best to pretend she was one of these characters. It was a skeleton crew.
Oh, well, no, that's great. Now, the dimension. Yeah, I'm just sort of curious. Then the dimensions of these puppets, are they like human scale, or I can't quite, with the example over your shoulder there, I can't quite tell if it's like 5-6 of a person, or if these are like.
I think these are all essentially to scale. That was the goal of it. I mean, it might be a little bit off here and there, but basically they're all to scale because we were going to shoot with real wardrobe and real sets, and I didn't want it to look out of balance. So everything was pretty much, that was the goal, get everything to scale.
Okay, excellent. Well, I guess going more broadly on the production, I did a little bit of reading on this, and you mentioned briefly just now saying a decade ago when you first got the idea for this. So this was long form movie production. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about how that went, the maybe various breaks you might have had that spurred things forward? Because I know you got some bigger names on this now.
Yeah.
What you've described as the DIY kind of process.
Yeah, well, we had made 2 features, my wife and I, with really cheap equipment with friends, basically, and in our house. So, we gotten that under our belt, got some mistakes made, but I didn't write those, she wrote those. So I decided I would write something, and then, when you're an unknown filmmaker, you kind of want to break out, and I just don't think you're going to do it well by playing it safe. So I guess I thought, what's the least safe way to get out there? Like, have you seen Fitzcarraldo? Like, why sail a boat around a mountain when you could push it up over the mountain and down the other side? And obviously, it's the most logical thing to do. So we just thought, let's just do a Fitzcarraldo on this. And the idea was really was intriguing to the names, the talent we went out to. So I think if we had live action, maybe we wouldn't have gotten these names. It's an all right, script and idea, but the fact that it's puppets was too much of an experiment for some of these people to pass up, including James Marsters, who was really repulsed by the script, and Robert Englund, who just thought it was a really intriguing idea. So I think that part of it was easy. And it's also easy when you've got the voices in your pocket to then take a year or 2 off, fabricate puppets, come back, do their scenes, at another date. It just lets you, relax and take your time with it.
Who was the first of the bigger names to sign on to the project?
I think it was James, because I think he shares the voice agent with my wife. So I think she had an in there among a couple other people on the cast, maybe like Hannah Mae Lee. But I think we went out to him first, and then I think everyone else kind of trickled in over the course of 6 months or a year.
Yeah, because you do have a good lineup here. You have James Marsters, Robert Englund, Jordan Peele. I'm always pleased to see or hear Rich Fulcher because he's something of a favorite of mine. I can definitely see him being on board with this
Yeah.
kind of glorious excess here. And of the uncanny, unpleasant characters presented, his is, in his own way, perhaps one of the more disturbing as far as.
Yeah. Well, Rich is a friend of ours, so we just reached out to him. It worked out great.
Okay, yeah, no, that does sound like it worked out well. So now working with like different fabricators over the years, as you did, the production challenges for this, I imagine, mostly had to do with the creation of these, and these people in puppet form. What was perhaps the most interesting challenge you had to overcome, other than not exploding a puppeteer's hand at a pivotal scene?
Well, I think every scene almost presented some sort of impossible challenge, like this puppet drives a car, or this puppet smokes. And we didn't want static shots. We wanted the camera to move a bit and to the puppets to move a bit. Otherwise, it's just talking heads. I don't think it's that interesting. So every scene had that sort of thing where I'd read through it and go, well, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen. So then I'd have to figure it out. I have to create a solution for that, and it happened all the time. And then COVID didn't help. You couldn't just blow smoke through a pipe. I had to create a bellows and use that to blow smoke through a pipe while everyone had a mask on. So stuff like that. And then, because you can't have, inanimate objects drive cars, you'd have to start working in green screen and things like that to make things happen. So you'd really have to plan it all out, shot by shot. So that was one challenge. You got the actors' voices. You couldn't go back and re-record them. If you had any changes, you had to work with what you had, which worked out fine in the end. But it meant that you had to see the film in your head at the beginning, record all the voices, and then just proceed as if you've got this finished film in your head and make everything fit into that. There was no improvisation on set or any of that, or maybe I'll just do that. Or you just really had to have a really good, rigid idea of what's gonna look like at the end, which is not easy to do.
How did you have a puppet drive a car?
Well, first of all, you have a puppeteer that's a contortionist. So Danny's Montouf, he's very, very tall. Somehow he collapsed his body into the well of the car and was able to still create these really great performances. And then I just put a green screen behind it, and I would just put the camera on a dolly so it looked like the car was moving, but I'm moving. Or for the driving shots, sometimes they're wearing a mask.
Oh, that's delightful. Well, speaking of, you mentioned forming the movie from the beginning. I would like to go back. The story of Les has a very personal feel to it, in as much that the topic you're ultimately approaching, alcoholism, is that, and forgive me if I had better not be asking this, is that something you're personally familiar with, or is it maybe someone you know? Because as a recovering alcoholic myself, I was sort of gratified to say, oh, this is an interesting representation of that.
Yes, it is part of my, not my personal history, but someone I knew, but also the whole idea of accountability, alcoholism among other things. For your life is something that I went through in my late 40s. Was it late? Yeah, late 30s, early 40s. Just the whole idea of being not quite this extreme, but this sort of person just sitting at home playing video games, and just having a lot of static in the attic, and needing to do something about that, taking responsibility for their life, and realizing that the problems are your problems. They're not due to other people, and you're not the victim of other people. So I think that, and the solution to that sometimes is healthy and sometimes is not healthy. So I think in these cases, people need to kind of first assess what's going on and try to overcome the unhealthy responses to all that, clear out the static, and then create healthy solutions to it.
Yeah, I think that was captured rather nicely with one of the it might have been the closing scene with the police officer character, when Les is finally confessing to having done nothing. That's right. You've done nothing. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is really really nailing it on the head there of those issues you were just bringing up. I guess in a more lighthearted vein, there are various massacres of the puppet characters, be they the potential perpetrators of violence given a charge or what have you. In particular, I remember the germaphobe guy who was briefly co-conspirator with Les, and I guess I wonder now if that was perhaps inspired a little bit by COVID, during the your production schedule there. What was like? Yeah, can you tell us about like a fun moment you had? Obviously, you had all these challenges, but what was like one that stands out as a very fun, horrible thing to have done with these puppet characters?
Yeah, I mean, fun to be an observer was when Danny was doing one of his performances. He had to wear like a white hazmat suit and protection and all that because we were spraying the hell out of him with blood, and him and the puppet. And we didn't want him to get bloody, so that was fun. I think he enjoyed getting all dressed up. Aside from that, we shot at an abandoned amusement park, and that was a huge experiment because it would be extremely hot one day and then flash flooding the next, and there were squatters and bugs and rats there. It was just a wild. So yeah, and but you know how it is with those low budget films. You've got like 3 days to shoot a week's worth of stuff, so you just got to keep going, and budget your time wisely, and just keep going. If whatever's happening, come up with a solution to it. So that was kind of a fun challenge. It was hard, but with those things, it's always nice to come out the other end and be alive and have something good to show for it. So I think that was rewarding too.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious then, is there any like behind the scenes footage caught by anybody for this? Because I certainly with this medium you've chosen, and these anecdotes you've shared with us so far, it could be amusing for those out there who like to be behind the
I think we do have. I think we do have a bunch. The thing is, I think every day on set was sort of panic mode. So we never really had. We didn't have a photographer or videographer kind of like recording things. It was just if Carrie had any free time, she was ordering lunch for the day. She was cleaning up, and she wasn't like she tried her best to get some video of this stuff. But all of us were just frantically doing the job of 3 other people. So I think we do have a collection of little video clips here and there, and I think I've pulled them all together. But we might release them someday. I'll talk to my distributor.
Okay, that'll be gratifying because I know, plenty of. I personally prefer to really just watch a movie and have it stand on its own. I don't go much for directors' commentaries. Although I do find myself interviewing filmmakers, so I guess I get my taste of that there. But I know that there are plenty out there who really like to see how, especially the strange things that can be found in Abruptio, are going to be.
Yeah, I think besides just knowing how the sausage is made. As a filmmaker, most of the information that I've gathered hasn't been from film school, but it's been watching movies and listening to the commentaries, like having a DVD, listen to commentary, because then I can actually get in the film. I like the movie. I wonder how he did it, or what he was thinking, or she. Get in their head, listening to what they're saying. So I think most of my education came from the commentaries, and really good critics that I appreciate, Pauline Kael and Ebert, stuff like that. We might not agree with, but you appreciate the way they've dissected the movie. So I think those have been the most important ways. But aside from that, unless you're a filmmaker, I don't know. I wouldn't just sit and listen to a commentary.
If I'm not incorrect, you did do a commentary for the Blu-ray, and isn't there a separate commentary from the puppeteer?
Yes, it's me and my wife doing one, and then Danny doing another.
So I guess anybody that was really, really into puppeteering would get a lot of technical advice from the second one, maybe some practical advice.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear.
Now, I guess so. We're probably going to be on the topic of puppets till we're done with this, considering the movie. Just to maybe find out, this obviously took you a long time to do for the various reasons that you've mentioned and have been hinted at. Is puppets as a vehicle for storytelling something you're going to consider in the future?
Well, of course, it was motivated in this movie. There's no reason. If there's not a good reason to do puppets, I won't do puppets. But that said, I've written scripts that have, puppets instead of visual effects because I'm a fan of practical effects. So I could see, like, I have one that's an alien invasion where we're actually on the side of the aliens. We're rooting for them to destroy the planet. Those would be practical, gigantic puppets on cranes and stuff like that. So that would be an interesting concept. But aside from that, just as regular people, I don't know. I don't know if there's ever going to be another puppet, regular puppet movie.
And I see you've got our friend, the police chief, behind you. Did various other cast and crew get to take home their, puppets that might have been important to them? Like is Les Hackles hanging out with James Marsters right now?
No, they're all sitting in storage, having a nice time together, reminiscing. But we got to keep them all.
Because I guess it's not impossible to have an Abruptio sequel when we see Les getting his life together after, I'm going to say, some jail time.
Or maybe we'll have a spin-off with one of the other characters someday.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see more of the police chief.
Maybe him and Dummkopf will have like a sitcom or something. And Dennis.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God, I forgot about, it was saw this a few months.
Like Barney, was it Barney?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned him in context of the police chief, his earnestness has come flooding right back to
There's sort of a minor thing that piqued my curiosity, which is there is some actual traditional animation in this. When the characters watch TV, sometimes it's animated, and it's not clear whether they're watching an animated show or whether this is supposed to be reality and it's appearing as animated on screen. At one point, it looks like he's watching some sort of violent cartoon, and then there's an assassination, which is also depicted in cartoon. Was that meant to be ambiguous, or do we see in this world, or does TV show up as cartoon?
Yeah, I think there's a couple rules in this world. One's that the animals aren't puppets. We have dogs and things like that. It's just humans. And the other is that when we're watching a puppet, so the puppets can't be watching puppets. There'd have to be another thing that's not puppets, and that's going to be 2D animation. So that's kind of like the other rule in this world.
So I guess this is there's a lot going on in this movie, and it's not the longest movie. I think it's only about an hour and a half, I think, but there's a real depth of history. Did that get banged out before shooting, say, or were there sort of as you mentioned, panic mode and on the fly as a sort of modus operandi there? I don't want to use the phrase making it up as you went along, but sort of adapted to insights someone might have had or ideas that hadn't been looked at yet. So just sort of curious how concrete Les's world was before it became the reality we see it.
I think it's just me and my wife throwing ideas back and forth. And I think, the idea is his room is this little prison. And so, of course, we wanted the wallpaper to be literal prison bars. And I did want to just kind of frame it, off kilter to begin with. I actually wanted to do just close-ups with no wides to begin with until he almost hits the girl, and then just suddenly go into wide shots just to get a broader perspective. Sort of like we step into color in Wizard of Oz, that sort of thing. Yeah. I don't think I ever carried that motif through, but a lot of that was thought through in advance. All the posters, just to build his sense of like, this is a guy that really loves sci-fi and horror, and we'll see representation of actual prior sci-fi and horror movies from the 70s and early 80s throughout the movie.
So, I was curious. Obviously, I think the babies reminded me a little bit of Eraserhead. I don't know if that was intentional or a coincidence. Another movie, I kind of got a vibe from non-puppet movie was Phantasm with the trans-dimensional kind of element. Was that a movie that was sort of on your mind, or is it just another coincidence?
No, I think that was in the it takes 7 years or whatever to make a movie. All these ideas seep into it. So, and some of them are subconscious, and some of them you're really going for to try to depict. Like one thing we talk about phantasm, the thing that I know for sure I wanted to reflect was the doorknob he turns to get into this colony. I wanted that to look like the silver ball. So you wouldn't have known that looking at that, but sort of stuff like that sort of seeped into it. The wardrobe, certain shots, like the home invasion shot that opens that scene, that the sequence is a reflection of Clockwork Orange, where we have a guy on a typewriter and we dolly away, which is another home invasion show. So there's all sorts of these little callbacks and references and Easter eggs going on, which I hopefully are intentional. This. So my thing that I didn't want to do is bring in a bunch of gimmicks, whether it was puppetry or, hey, look at this movie, it looks just like The Shining. It's like if there's no reason to do that other than an homage, an empty homage, I just didn't feel like that had any soul to it. So when I did this stuff, there was a real reason for it. It wasn't just that I appreciate that. It's just that this is a man that's kind of always living his life through the past, and he's unable to move into the present and take accountability and then proceed forward. So because of that, you're going to see reflections of the past, of his past, seeping in throughout his story, or even of his fantasy.
Does Les has Les seen the same movies we've seen, or in his world has he seen a whole different set of fictional films?
I think he'd have to have seen some of the ones we have, because there's just so much similarity there. But also, if you look at his walls, they're covered with movie posters of films that don't exist. So I think there's some mishmash going on there.
Speaking of history, there's obviously Les. There's the police chief. There is the Chelsea character who he takes in and protects for a good stretch of the film, seeking. I imagine he's seeking some sort of redemption in his passive way. But it seemed a lot of care for. He had various assistants, bomb installed types, but there seemed to be a special amount depth to, I believe, Sal, the older stand-up comic guy. I wonder if you might be able to talk a little bit about that rather interesting character there, and what may have inspired him.
Well, he's inspired by the dancing monkey type that wants validation from the world, and just rather than just being genuine or authentic, is constantly seeking approval, whether it's making jokes or bragging or whatever. I feel like I wanted to put that into the opening, the first act, to kind of bring that out somehow, but I just never managed to get it in there. I got a little bit of his OCD in there with his pencils, but I wanted to show that this was also a side of. It doesn't look like it, knowing the guy, he'd be a dancing monkey, but it's basically the idea of seeking validation from the outside world rather than being confident in who you are.
Okay, well, which is, I guess, a different side of the coin to Les, who doesn't seem to be seeking approval from anywhere.
Well, we've got a little bit, 3.5 minutes left, and so we have some final questions. But first off, we always want to give you a chance to plug whatever you're doing now, and or what's coming up, or what you want people to follow you at, or.
Well, aside from this movie, I've steadily been writing books under E. Stuart Marlowe on Amazon. A lot of those, because you have a great idea and you could write a script, but no one's gonna finance it. It takes forever. It's just easier to write a book about it and novelize it, and then put it on Amazon, and then come back to it later to adapt it to a script or pitch it. So all those ideas are out there on Amazon, and I little by little go through them and turn them into scripts. So if anyone's interested in seeing some of my other ideas, that's what I would do.
I see your website here, estuartmarlowe.com.
Yes, right.
Oh, songwriter. I didn't know that you also dabbled.
A recovered songwriter. I don't do that anymore, but there was a long stretch for a couple decades where I was a instrumentalist and home studio and all that.
Okay, and what website would you like people to go to follow you, if you do?
This one? Yeah, you can go to abruptio.com. I think Facebook, it's Abruptio Film. Or we're on Instagram on ES Marlowe. I'm even on Threads. So any of these sites, I generally, I post most of my stuff on abruptio.com, or my Facebook page is the main area.
Okay. And Giles, do you want to go for the final question?
Yes, I would, Greg. Thank you kindly. Well, first off, thank you very much for chatting with us. We like to end every interview with our test subjects here with the question, what's your hometown and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Well, I moved around quite a bit, but eventually I settled into Calabasas, California when I was young. Um, and my mom still lives there, but I haven't really dined out there in a long time. It's not well known for its food. So I couldn't really make any recommendations. Maybe Corner Bakery.
What about where do you live now? If we're not
I live near Anaheim in Orange County. There's tons of restaurants out this way. Depends what you like. Indian food. There's all sorts of food.
So any given restaurant in Anaheim will probably do you well then. Well,
Well, thank
Thanks.
you very much. Evan Marlowe of Abruptio. You can rent it just about anywhere, the usual suspects. And the Blu-ray you can get on Amazon or the usual suspects. And the novels, yeah, those might be great to check out too. Any final words before we sign off?
Well, if life-size puppets aren't for you, I would not recommend this movie to you.
sound
Thank-
advice.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for coming on, and good luck with your next projects. Hope you get something made, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, this is Greg Smalley from 366 Weird Movies here today with Giles Edwards and joined by a special surprise guest, Vera Drew of The People's Joker, which, there she is, which you may know is a transsexual allegory and an underground parody of a certain comic book extended universe, which will probably lead to our first question. I'm going to allow Giles to ask most of the questions, but I'm going to start out with a question that you've probably been asked in every single interview, and we'll try to come at it maybe from a slightly different angle. We first learned about this movie from the Toronto Film Festival, International Film Festival, looking for interesting movies. Put a check mark next to this one, says, wow, that sounds weird. That sounds like something we'd love to see. It screened once, and then there was a mysterious cease and desist letter from an unknown corporate entity, and that second screening was canceled. And I believe after that, one other festival sort of defied that cease and desist order and screened it anyway. But other than that, it was kept out of exhibition for many, many months until the legal questions were all resolved. And I'm sure that you always knew and believed that your work was protected under the First Amendment as under fair use as parody. But I guess my question is, I assumed we were never going to get to see it. Did you ever despair that you were not going to get this, that you'd worked so hard on out? Or did you always
Oh my
know
God. Yeah, no, well, I think I always knew because at the end of the day, I was like, if we don't get a distributor, or some sort of like legal protection or like James Gunn's thumbs up or something, I was kind of just in this, I had this sort of um, like drop dead date in mind where I was like, okay, like I'll probably just upload it to YouTube or something. Um, and the plan was like before the second I was gonna hear about Joker 2's trailer drop, I was gonna just put it online. But thankfully, I was surrounded by a lot of friends and family and people that had worked on the movie that really kept encouraging me just to keep hope alive and that it would find um a way out there eventually and thankfully like the indie film world really kind of was on our side throughout the whole thing. Like a lot of festivals still really wanted to play it, even though we had this like letter from Warner Brothers. They were like, we'll play it. We're not afraid of Warner Brothers. And so we did a lot of secret screenings. We did a lot of like screenings where we would announce the day before, kind of just under the cover of night, and not really because there's a lot of people. It's a mess at WB. They're not really following stuff that closely. So we were able to do that a few times and get away with it. And then thankfully, I think at a certain point it had screened at like enough festivals. We had kind of demonstrated to some of the bigger festivals that it was that we were able to screen it without any drama. And it was in summer of last year in 2023 that Outfest did our first public facing screening in Los Angeles, and it was crazy because it sold out within an hour of us announcing it, and it was kind of like this big green light to me that like, okay, that was like I think the moment I finally like unclenched and was like, okay, it's probably gonna be fine. Like it's gonna get out there. And that was the film festival that led to us finally getting distribution. So it was definitely kind of a long road, but like I learned a lot in the process. And as you said, like I always assumed that it was protected by fair use and parody. Like I had worked with lawyers when we were writing it even. I never thought Warner Brothers would come after us. And that honestly feels kind of naive now when I say it. Like it really was always going to be this journey. I think that's the feeling I have now, and I feel really good about it just because of like the response that the movie's gotten. And yeah, it's kind of a miracle that it got out there.
Great. I will turn it over to Giles, but before I do, I want to say I have the exact same cat clock that you have. You can't see it because of my
Oh,
background.
cool.
I have the exact same Felix the cat style clock. One of my treasured
The
possessions.
tail broke. I don't know if
Mine does
yeah,
too.
I
Yeah.
love it, but our tail doesn't. Yeah, it's
They don't,
gotta
they're kind of
they
cheap.
gotta make those tails higher quality.
And
Okay,
less and
Giles.
fewer decades old, presumably.
Yeah.
Um, Hello, Vera. I will break my
Hi,
general
Giles.
that unusual silence there that I maintained. I had the pleasure of catching the People's Joker on a screener this past April, and after that, began following you on the website formerly known as Twitter, and as such was able to keep an eye on quite a bit of the hubbub, both with the film, with your personal doings vis-a-vis, I believe, marriage and other such special events. And one of the comments that caught
Yes.
my eye with your various retweets and comments about the movie was, I've heard The People's Joker, which is a very very fine film, described as, quote, better than Citizen Kane. I would personally
Oh,
describe it
yes.
as rather different than Citizen Kane, but I was wondering how you might stack up your, I believe, is this your feature debut as a director?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And your thoughts on how People's Joker is doing for you what you wanted it to do, and how it, in regards to the whole comparison to Wells's very early motion picture, different types of ground broken. And I was curious if you might talk about the ground you were trying to break and why. And I imagine you're well practiced in this, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds or however long you want. But
I've never been able to say anything under 90 seconds in my life. I never shut up. I think the ground that I was trying to break really was just getting my story out there, but getting a story out there that like was this kind of this honest about just my trans experience and what it's like making art right now as like an independent creator when like things are so just like streaming and big IP and all of that. Like I really wanted to make something that was about how hard it is to make stuff in this world where like everything is just kind of a surface level lie and it's all superheroes all the time. And queer representation in mainstream movies is just a joke. So I think that was kind of, and like I don't know that I was always really aware that that was the ground I was trying to break. I think it was because I really just wanted to make a movie. I'd wanted to make a movie my whole life, and this was the kind of wall that I had to like burst through. Um, and I not to give you a correction, but I do think the quote of the Orson Welles quote, it was a question that I got asked um, at a Q&A in Chicago, and somebody said, they asked, "How do you stay humble knowing that you've made gay Citizen Kane?"
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
I it's okay. It's
I feel unashamed by the
nobody should ever
correction
have
there.
to say that sentence. But it's and I don't know the answer to that because I was raised Catholic, so I have a healthy amount of self-hate. I think of myself as pretty humble.
I've heard that from other Catholics, especially, shall we say, creative type Catholics that I've come to know, that there is an unfortunate mind to dig there, I suppose. Now, obviously, People's Joker, it's a very personal story. It is effectively, in one guise or another, about you, your journey. I'm curious about what thoughts you had maybe in making a movie before there was the convenient plot structure to borrow from a popular, I believe, 2018 Joaquin Phoenix film. Because that's, the plot such as it is, not that, you may have read my review there. It's a very loose plot, which allows your various digressions and explorations, and I'm fully seized with that. But it is based on that, and it even has a number of similar shots to that particular movie. Did you have ideas for this kind of movie before the other Joker came out? And how were you?
Yeah, oh, sorry. The original, my internet sucks. The original, like I had ideas for a movie, I'd say like in 20, like starting in like 2017, I had started writing this thing that was sort of like a body horror, like coming of age comedy that was about a drag queen who was physically addicted to irony. And that was kind of where the conception of like this version of the Joker sort of came from, was like somebody who's so just sort of like poisoned by like the internet and pop culture and stuff that she's kind of like lost her entire identity to it. And I think I had always wanted to make a mixed media movie. Like that's just always, I think I always knew that my first movie was going to be kind of like a mixed media collage type movie. And I was always into, experimental film and analog and all that stuff. Like the movie starts with like it's slowly zooming on like a television set. And I remember when I was like 14, I probably wrote 5 different scripts when I was like a teenager that started that way. There's a lot of imagery in it that were things that were just there kind of my entire life, and kind of just processing around this idea of like, Amy Nicholson, who's a critic out here in LA, described my film and Skinamarink and I Saw the TV Glow. Like she kind of looped us all together as filmmakers and described us as the indoor kids. And it's kind of this like almost idea of, I like it as a description because it was like this first moment of kind of understanding myself and sort of the through line between a lot of the kind of films that are being made right now, where it's like we were this generation of kids where it's like, we didn't have an identity. We were just sort of like handed a superhero toy. And so yeah, I think on some level this was always the kind of movie that I was going to make. And then when the Joker idea sort of clicked, it was like, well, this is the perfect vehicle to kind of unpack that sort of thing, I think.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, you mentioned the mixed media, which brings me to another question because this your film is done in a number of different styles with various stylistic elements and flourishes tossed in. I was wondering if you might talk briefly about. Obviously, you've kind of explained why you did that sort of thing, but how that sort of came together. Because I understand you, shall we say, outsourced a lot of like image and sequence work to various people you knew. And
Yeah, it was I put out I put out a call on the website formerly known as Twitter, just sort of seeing if anybody wanted to help make this movie. And at that point it was really, it was a lot smaller of an idea. It was really kind of just this like going to be this piece of video art that I would like screen, maybe screen once at like a warehouse or something. Like it was never really going to be anything beyond just like that. And then just the sheer amount of people that replied to that, it kind of clicked into place for me as like, well, I guess I should like really take this seriously now. Like I couldn't think of any, like historically any filmmaker that had a crew of like hundreds of people at her disposal before. So it kind of like it became this other thing, and the process of it was really like, I mean, everybody says this about movies, but like I can't stress enough how collaborative it was. Like I didn't want to like micromanage um the artists that were working on it, like because I couldn't really pay people that much. Like I it needed to kind of be this sort of like DIY community garden sort of where we're all just sort of playing with toys. And so it was this thing too of kind of just encouraging everybody to sort of lean into their given aesthetic. Like what kind of media are they used to like making? And I convey my ideas to them and like what I was sort of picturing. And then oftentimes what I'd get back would be completely kind of different than what it was in my head. But that was what was kind of exciting about it, was sort of just this making this movie that was sort of telling me what it is as we're making it. And I learned a lot, I think, in that process, just about collaborating with people. And those were, going back to the first question, like those were the people that really sort of carried me to the finish line too, when shit hit the fan with Warner Brothers. Just being surrounded by this like community of like really talented artists was just like, okay, we got to get this out there in the right way. And yeah, it was a dream. There's no such thing as auteurs, in my opinion. Like I really think auteur theory is a load of crap. Like making a movie is like impossible, and it's really the team that you assemble that makes it. You're just supposed to be the gentle hand, I think, that guides it.
Excellent.
Dig it.
Hey,
Well,
I hate to tell you, but we're actually getting short on time, I'm informed. But before we go, we do need to ask Vera, what's up next? You have something in the
yeah.
pipeline. Is there People's Joker 2 that's a musical or anything?
I need a break from playing with superheroes for a while. I literally was reading a Batman comic like last night. I'm not sick of consuming superhero stuff, but I want to move on creatively onto other things. I'm writing a horror movie right now. I'm actually it's written. I'm like storyboarding, and we're starting to figure out financing for a horror movie that I wrote called Dead Name. That's kind of like a cosmic horror buddy comedy, and I have another script that I'm about to turn in. That's a heist movie, kind of about divorce, and we'll see what happens first. I'm really kind of trying to get a lot of different things going at once because a lot of it's weird. Like for most of my life, like I knew I wanted to make a movie, but like actually sitting down and figuring out what that was felt kind of impossible. Like, and the second I made this, just a lot of ideas really came. So I've been developing a lot of stuff, and we'll see which one of those gets, which one we're able to trick people into giving us money to make first.
All right.
I believe the word you're looking for is convinced, but yes, excellent. Glad to hear you've got
Yes, yeah.
irons
Sorry,
in the fire. I'm sure your fine PR representative won't begrudge us one final quick question that we like to end up with everyone that agrees to chat with us. Can you tell us the name of your hometown, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
Oh God, I love this question. Mokena, Illinois. It's a south suburb in Chicago, and Aurelio's Pizza. It's the best pizza in the world, and you can find it in the south suburbs of Illinois. It's kind of their tomato sauce is like a little sweet. I think they use brown sugar in it, and it's fantastic. It's worth flying to Illinois to go get it, in my opinion.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for being. I'm informed you have someplace to be, and we need to let you go get on a panel. So we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Giles. I will
Thanks,
have
guys.
this later. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Weird. Yeah, I guess that is the word for it. Weird.